Welcome to a Reading Comprehension Strategies presentation by Janie Cox. I am a teacher in Gillette, Wyoming. Let's get started. Reading is thinking. Once you have learned to read, it is now time to read to learn. In order to do so, it is important that you are consistent in checking for understanding. Today, we will discuss 5 strategies for checking for understanding. The 5 strategies that we will use to check for understanding include making inferences, making connections, questioning, making predictions, and visualizing. As we go along, we will be working with symbols that we will use when applying these skills. The symbols will include the letter or the symbol with a circle around it. For making inferences, it will be an I, connections a C, questioning a question mark, predictions a P, and visualizing a V. We will discuss the symbols and how to apply them more later. Our first comprehension strategy is making inferences. If you note the symbol, the circle with the I in it, making an inference is like reading between the lines. Inferring is drawing conclusions based on what the author is trying to tell you, but hasn't directly said. So you see our reader here in the corner. Let's look at an example that they may be reading and make an inference on that. Here's his reading selection. It was so dark I could barely see my hand in front of my face. As I stepped further into the room, I could feel the goosebumps making their way up my skin. All I could hear was the sound of my own breathing, which was suddenly coming in gasps. Here in red is the reader's inference. He's inferring that they're getting scared. Often you can infer from an author's descriptive language. Our next reading comprehension strategy is making connections. Note the symbol with the circle and the C. Making a connection is taking something you already know and connecting it to something you have read. There are 3 different types of connections we're going to take a look at. The first connection is text to self. This is where you take something in the book you are reading and connect it to something personal in your life. The second way to make a connection is text to text. This is when you take something you are reading and apply it to another book you have read or other information you have read elsewhere. The third way to make a connection is text to world. This is when you read and you apply what you're reading or make a connection to anything else you have learned. This could be from the internet, from television, or from any conversation you had. Next, we're moving on to questioning. Note there's our circle with the question mark. Questioning is when you ask yourself about what you are reading. Asking questions is meant to be as a self-checkup to make sure you are understanding. So when you yourself are reading, you should always be asking questions. There are 2 types of questions that we're going to discuss today. One is lightweight and one is heavyweight. Note our light and heavyweight bodybuilders here. Here are some examples. A lightweight question is a question where you could find the content right within the book. An example would be, what color was Bob's shirt in the story? That answer may be obvious. He wore a red shirt. We didn't have to think too hard about that. Another example would be, what type of car did Ezra drive? That would be something the author flat out told us. It's a description. Heavyweight questions are more thought-provoking. We may have to gather what we have read to decide on an answer, and answers may be different from reader to reader. For an example, why would Casey have decided not to run away from home? And a second example, what was the lesson that the main character learned? These are not things the author would come right out and tell us. We would have to think about what we've read. The next reading comprehension strategy is making predictions. There's our circle with a P in it. I bet you didn't predict that. Making predictions is like guessing what is going to happen next while you are reading a book. So here we have our reader. Let's see what his prediction is. I bet they are going to run into the evil villain on their way. He gathered what he knew from the reading and made a prediction. We need to make sure that our predictions are realistic, that if we're reading a book about monkeys, we're not going to guess anything about another type of animal invading, because that wouldn't really make sense to what we're reading. Our next comprehension strategy is visualizing. There's our V in the circle. Visualizing is making a mental movie in your head as you read. It's important to visualize. We connect better with the characters, and we can visualize action, the setting, what the characters themselves look like. It makes us connect with our reading. Here's an example, making a movie in your head. Here are some tips to applying your comprehension strategies to your independent reading. You will use different tools. If the book happens to belong to you, it might help to use pencils or markers. If you don't mind, you can write in the margins. Write your predictions using your symbols and note what they are. For example, if you have a question, just write it right into the margin or highlight something that you found interesting in your book. Remember, only do this if the book belongs to you. If the book does not belong to us, if it's your teachers or friends or it belongs to the library, it's important to use sticky notes. Sticky notes we can write our prediction on using our symbol, and then we can stick them right into the book where we had that. If we make a prediction, we would use our symbol, the P with a circle around it, write what our prediction is, and stick it right in the book where we made that prediction. Also, we can use our journal. Our journal is important in that we can write any thoughts we have throughout our reading. And then last but not least, we can include our symbols. Our symbols here again are I for inference, C for connections, the question mark for questions, P for predictions, and V for visualizing. Remember to always use your symbols so you remember which strategy you applied. Thank you very much for being a good audience, and good luck applying your strategies. Remember that reading is thinking.